Morning, everybody. How are you?
Well, Dylan, I know you.
Easy to say, it's never the same. I guess I kind of like your ways. Love.
Keep singing. We're dancing here.
What was that?
I don't know. Someone's singing. I think they got a little bashful and left now, but we were enjoying the music. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with what we're doing today. And this is kind of really just a follow-up from what we left off last Thursday. So I'm going to mute everybody here so that our karaoke group there doesn't interfere with all that. So if you have anything to say, just feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Now, last Thursday we had talked about the proper attire for an interview, and I gave you what the experts thought. But today I want to kind of focus on, and I sometimes get in trouble for this because I'm a little bit blunt about this stuff, but this is what I'm going to focus on are tips from my personal experience as an interviewer, which I've conducted lots of interviews. As an interviewee, I still go through interviews occasionally just to get the experience. And so these are some of the things that I've noticed that I feel will be very helpful for you. And I've kind of outlined them, not in any particular order, but in things that you should avoid. So avoid these 20 interview attire mistakes. First off, especially if it's a professional interview, but even if it's not a professional interview, which professional I'm using as a very loose term for something that requires a higher degree. But really, any interview should be a professional interview because you're expected to be a professional. I don't care if you're stocking shelves, certainly a job that's much esteemed in these times, or if you're going in to be a lawyer or a doctor. These are all professional interviews. So I can't think of anything that's not a professional interview except that you just run into each other on the street and it's like, hey, are you interested in a job? So here's carrying a backpack or a fanny pack instead of a briefcase or portfolio shows that you're still kind of a kid, that you're treating it like you're still a student and have the same expectations, which are certainly different than on the job. When you're a student and you come into my class with a backpack, it's just to carry your stuff and, you're being forced to do this kind of in a way. But when you come to a job, no one's forcing you to be there. We're exchanging money with you in order for you to do the job. And you need to show a little bit more, recognition that I'm here to do a job and do it well, rather than just carrying your backpack in like you're a kid who just has to be there. That's kind of the connotation you're giving off here. And as I go through these things, that's kind of what you have to keep in mind, is that you are being judged by not just what, you say, but the way you look, the way you act. These are things that are almost as important as what you're saying during the interview. Particularly, let's say I have a job opening and 20 people, applied for it. And I've got 6 interviews today. Each of these interviews are going to take 25 minutes. They can get boring. Okay? I have to sit around, just listen to you talk about your life. My mind wanders into, okay, what else is on my desk that I need to get done? What's going to happen at home tonight? I've got these other issues. Your mind tends to wander because everybody has pretty much the same pat answers if they've prepared. Now, when your mind starts to wander, it starts to look for distractions. And you might be saying something, and then I'm going to notice, oh my God, what is that? What kind of shoes is she wearing? And instead of listening to you give your sales pitch about you, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about your shoes. And this is why it's real important to not have these little things like a backpack or fanny pack that make my mind distracted. And now what you're saying is background like a Charlie Brown cartoon. Wah, 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 wah. And I'm thinking about these other things. You want them focused on what you're saying and what your sales pitch is. And that's why you don't want any of these other things that will distract them from this. And I don't care, what your personal political opinions or beliefs or, cultural beliefs are. If it's distracting from what you have to say, it's distracting and it should be avoided. So women should also ditch their purse too, according to image consultants, for that same reason. Number 2, sunglasses on top of your head or headphones around your neck. Be sure to remove all that transit gear and tuck it in your briefcase before entering the lobby. Now, I say the lobby and not just the interview room because everybody there is going to be judging you. Let's say you have a great interview. They're real excited. They walk you out to the lobby. They shake your hand. You leave. And the receptionist goes, oh my God, you should have seen him when he first came in. He was, and all of a sudden that impression of you has gone down. Number 3, and this particularly goes for women. And I apologize, I'm not picking on women. Men do bad things too, but there's a different group of bad things that men do as opposed to women. I've seen way too many women who go in and think that selling their body is what's going to get them the job. It may well be. I mean, you might get the job based on that, but why on God's green earth would you want to work in a place where you're only valued for that aspect of you? And I'm sorry, it happens to everybody. I mean, I used to be a young, slim, svelte guy myself, but it happens to everybody. Your bodies change with age. And if that's all you're good for, how long are you going to keep a job? Is it going to be a career? Probably not, if that's the case. So don't go in there selling, certain body parts or anything like that, because trust me, guys in the interview, that's distracting. That's what they'll be thinking about. And instead of listening to the value you actually bring as a person to the job. And as a female, I don't know if I would want a job like that, first off, and I'd be worried about my job security if I did take it. And as a male, I might be sitting there thinking, this is what she has to offer. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. And trust me, lawsuits are very expensive, and I'm going to try to avoid them in any way possible, including not hiring you if this is what you bring to the table. Pardon me for a second while I get a drink here. Starting to lose my voice. So women, don't wear too short skirts. Forget what some of those gals on The Apprentice, if you've ever seen those shows, are wearing. Your skirt should cover your thighs when you are seated. Number 4, for guys, the wrong tie. Ties should be made of silk. Don't get funky with the fabrics, because then all I'm thinking about is that a corduroy tie? What kind of fabric is that? Instead of listening to you. They should be no less than 3 1/4 inches wide with a conservative pattern. You don't want the really skinny ones like you see Texas ranchers wear on TV, what they call bolo ties, because then I'm sitting here thinking, did he just come off the ranch or something here? And, if they're too skinny, I'm thinking, he's from the 70s or something. And if you got a wild pattern, like little Tabasco sauce bottles I saw on a tie once, or Bud Light, Budweiser logos, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about what you're saying. So image consultants say the best colors for an interview are red or burgundy. Number 5, overly bright or large pattern clothing. And this goes for guys and girls. With the possible exception of a creative field, if you're going in to apply to be a graphic artist somewhere, or a computer, IT person, some of those fields, you're supposed to be creative and everything, and they've accepted certain personal flair amongst the employees in those fields. But I still wouldn't overdo it and become so overly dramatic that even those people are nonplussed and are actually questioning, my God, what is this person wearing, instead of listening to you. So advertising, computer programming, graphic arts, otherwise it's best to stick with navy, black, or gray. Number 6, heavy makeup on women, or any makeup on men. If you come in with shaved eyebrows and you've painted real thick, eyebrows that make you look like you're total surprise all the time, that's all I'm going to be looking at and thinking about. Just what the heck is up with that person's eyebrows? Guys, if you wear any makeup, then, as unfortunate as it may be, that's what I'm going to be thinking about to distract myself is, hey, this guy's got makeup on. Does that mean that he's homosexual? Does that mean, and in today's world, when a male interviewer is thinking about these things, what they're really thinking about is lawsuit, and whether or not you're going to, come in and automatically claim discrimination because you are homosexual. I can make a lot more excuses to not hire you and avoid all that than to hire you and then try to cover my butt that you're being discriminated against or something as you claim. Number 7, earrings on men. And in fact, men should avoid wearing any jewelry at all unless it's a wedding ring, class ring, or metal watch. And again, for the same reasons as the makeup. Number 8, more than one set of earrings on women. Again, not making any cultural judgments or anything, but if you have multiple sets of earrings, then that's what I'm doing is I'm sitting there going, how many earrings has she got in there? 4, 6 earrings. Man, that had to be painful. man, and look at, I don't know. If you see the guy when you're talking to him and he's like kind of scratching his ear and giving a little grimace, he's probably thinking of the pain in his ear. And again, not listening to what you have to say during the interview. Number 9, facial piercings, tongue jewelry, visible tattoos. Again, I don't care what your political or social perspective is. A guy who has a tattoo could do just as good a job as someone without a tattoo. Perhaps so. But how am I going to know that you can actually do a good job in the interview when you're trying to sell yourself and all I'm trying to do is read and determine what the heck your tattoo means? Number 10, ill-fitting clothes. Not a lot of people, and I'm one of them, can wear things straight off the rack. I can't go into a store, buy a suit, and it automatically fit me because my pant size is a little kid size as far as the length of the leg, and my shirt has to be a large adult man. Now, I don't think they don't, I always said they have those big and tall stores. They need some short and fat stores too for me, but I can't never find those, and so I'm stretched to trying to find things that somewhat match or to get them tailored. If you spend the money and the time to get them tailored and you come in and it fits very well on you, A, not only are you going to look better, but B, the impression is you actually care about yourself. You care about wanting this job to actually spend some time and money and investing in looking good for this. And that's kind of what I'm going to be thinking about is, okay, this person looks good. And I might not be listening to what you're saying, but at least I'm getting a positive impression from what you're wearing in that instances. So spending a little extra to have your garments tailored is a worthwhile investment, is what I'm saying. Number 11, long fingernails, especially with bright or specialty polishes. Nails should look clean. They should be trimmed to a length that doesn't leave an observer wondering how you keep from stabbing yourself. I once had a woman apply for basically a secretarial job, and she had 7-inch nails. They were huge. I'm like, how the heck did she type? And that's all I could think about when she was talking was, how is she going to type with those things? And so when the interview was over, it's like, what'd you think about her? Her nails were really long. That's all I had to say. I mean, how's she going to type? And, I completely missed everything she was saying as a result. Number 12, unnatural hair colors or styles. Now, I wrote this probably about 6 years ago, so long before Donald Trump was elected president, ironically, because I have on here, remember, Donald Trump was a billionaire well before he began wearing a comb over. If you're balding, try close crop cut like Bruce Willis or Matt Lauer. And what's hilarious about all this is now Donald Trump's the president, and Matt Lauer is a disgraced journalist who got booted off NBC because he was sexually abusing or assaulting, using his position, women on the set. So it's ironic that I have all that in there. I probably need to update that a little bit. But certainly, let's face it, okay, as much as some people might love Donald Trump, his hair is a little bit eccentric. And so, he's a billionaire, though. He can pull it off. He doesn't need a job from you. If you needed a job from him, I don't know if I'd go in there being super eccentric and taking the focus off my skills and abilities rather than him focusing on my hair. Number 13, short sleeve shirts, even worse when worn with a tie. I see short sleeve shirts, and I apologize if this is your religion. I'm not trying to bash your religion by any means. But when I see short sleeve shirts with a tie, I automatically think of Mormons, that they're coming to my door and they're going to try to convert me because that's their uniform. They wear short sleeve white shirts and a tie. And so that's what I'm going to be thinking about when you come in with a short sleeve white shirt and a tie. I'm going to be thinking about, okay, is this a reflection of his religion? What's going on here? Is he just out of touch with fashion? Or a polo with a tie. That's just completely out of touch with fashion. So, if you're going to wear a tie with a shirt, make sure it's a nice long sleeve button down shirt. So fishnets, pattern hosiery, bare legs. I don't care how tan you are. Women should stick with neutral color hosiery that complements their suit. When you come in with these other things, and I'll be honest with you, my wife says that this is a reason we don't have a daughter, because I'd probably lock her in an attic and keep her away. But if I did have a daughter, I would hope she would be valued for her intelligence and her persona and the value she could bring a business, rather than, wow, look at those legs. Look at the gams on that one. If I was a 1930s, movie star or something like that. Number 15, men whose socks don't match their shoes. And trust me, I have known so many guys that make these simple little fashion mistakes here. They come in and they've got white socks and dress shoes. And you have to ask, okay, I mean, did they not understand how to dress appropriately? Are they still little kids that they have to have mommy dress them? How much can I trust them to do on the job if they can't even dress themselves appropriately? Or you have brown shoes and black socks. Not as bad as white, but certainly the question becomes, okay, do they not understand how to color match, the basics of fashion here? Or do they still need mommy to dress them? And if that's the case, how much, again, can I trust them to do on the job without mommy being there to do it for them? And, oh God, whatever you do, this is horrible. I know, I probably am guilty of this myself, but when you sit down as a guy and you cross your legs, your pants hike up a little bit there. If I can see your pasty white ankle flesh and the dark hair kind of stringy and poking out from there, it's pretty freaking disgusting. But it's like a car wreck. You can't look away. And so you're going to be talking. I'm going, oh my God, look at that ankle. And I'm not going to hear a word you're saying. Number 16, rumpled or stained clothing. Listen, if you're, and this is particularly true for guys who really don't care about fashion that much, particularly when they're younger. But if you're interviewing late in the day, don't wear your suit around all day, go out for lunch, get a little bit of something on it, or, you're sitting there at your chair and it's getting all crumpled and wrinkled. Change into it later in the day. Wait until before the interview, before you get into your interview clothes so they look crisp, clean, fresh. Number 17, scuffed or inappropriate footwear. Studies have shown from HR professionals, the first thing they will notice about you as they approach you just to shake your hand is your shoes. So make sure they look good. And certainly don't wear sneakers. Ladies, don't wear stilettos. Open-toed shoes, sandals are all particularly no-nos, because in any of those, I'm seeing things other than you. I'm looking at other parts of your feet, and I'm trying to judge them rather than what you're saying. Number 18, and this is a big bugaboo of mine, because if you've ever gone down to the boys' locker room, it smells like, and I've seen kids do this, particularly freshmen. They'll go down there after PE, and instead of taking a shower and washing their extremities, their private parts to get rid of odor, what they will do is they will take a whole can of Axe and they'll waft it in the air, and then they'll just float through it, thinking that erases all kinds of body odor. Now, I know you've all seen the commercials for Axe, and guys, you think, gosh, if I just have some Axe, ladies will be all over me. Well, I'm sure if you want to discuss it with mom or any other ladies, they will tell you that this is not true. You have been lied to by these Axe people. Here's my best recommendation for you before an interview. Get rid of the Axe. Get in a hot shower. Get a bar of soap. Clean yourself all over, including underneath your arms, your privates, in between your butt crack. Wash your body and then rinse it all off. Put on some deodorant, okay? That's all you need to do. There is nothing else extra you need to add for a job interview. I'm not going to hire you based on the fact that you're covered in Axe, because frankly, the smell of Axe about makes me gag because of how much you guys use. If I can go in somewhere and instead of smelling something, I can taste it, it's wrong. So don't do that. Just clean yourself. Just be a clean person. And trust me, no one will notice at all. So strong aftershaves, perfumes, or colognes. Plus, a lot of people are actually allergic to certain scents. So for a subtle fragrance, just use a good quality bath soap, please. Number 19, belts and shoes that don't match. And it's the same thing with shoes and socks. I mean, the same reason. Shoes and belts should be made of leather or leather-like materials. And the best colors for men are black or cordovan, which is kind of a dark brown. And number 20, and this is important, especially important for your first interview as a guy when you're wearing a suit for the first time. There are things on the suit that are meant to protect it when it's hanging on the rack in the store. For example, suit jacket pockets have a little zigzag stitch on the actual pocket. You're supposed to take that out after you buy the suit. That's to keep the suit pocket closed on the rack so it doesn't collect dust or anything like that. So if you come into an interview and you still have that little zigzag there, I'm like, first suit, he doesn't know. And that's what I'm thinking about is, okay, this guy doesn't even know how to dress himself. And so how much work can we seriously trust him with? On the pants, I've seen lots of people come into interviews, believe it or not, on the pants, they still have that long plastic tag with the size on there. So I'm like, oh, he's 32 by 34. All right. And just kind of chuckling to myself instead of listening to you. So make sure you've taken off all the tags that come on the pants, any of the straight pins that come in the shirts, the cardboard underneath the collar on a shirt. You've taken out the little zigzag stitching on the pockets, including the breast pocket and the side pockets of your coat and things like that. Now we're going to get into how to dress for the interview, your first impression. Let's get into the actual interview itself. The biggest piece of advice I can give you for an interview, which is a very nerve-wracking situation. I've been in lots of them and I still get nervous. The biggest piece of advice I can give you is practice. Practice in front of a mirror, set up your iPad or phone, record yourself, and just keep doing it until it becomes natural what you're doing. A job interview is going to give you a chance to shine. And what you say and what you do is going to move you to either the next round of consideration of employment or knock you out of contention. So it doesn't take much to make an impression, good or bad. If you haven't taken time to dress appropriately, or if you say the wrong thing, it's over. They're not going to remember much else. Do you know how long it takes for an HR person or an interview to make a decision about you as an employee? At most, 30 seconds. That's all it takes. So in 30 seconds, it's not a matter of what you can say to impress them. It's a matter that you've already come in looking impressive and that you've said the right things just at the outset, the greeting. Hello, and shook their hands, not necessarily your answer to some complex, weird question like, if you were a bumblebee, what kind of flower would you land on? That stuff is almost irrelevant. They've made up their mind about you, according to most studies, long ago. So take the time to prepare your interview technique, including knowing what's on your resume. Nothing worse than someone sitting there and says, well, I see you worked for Dallas and Smith and Company in July. Tell us what that was like. Oh, he's lying about this, apparently. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know you. So it may just be nerves, but it may just be that you're trying to impress me with a resume that isn't true. Be able to present why you're qualified for the job, why you're interested in the company. I know you want a job. Everybody wants a job. But if I hire you at my company and all you wanted was a job, how long will it be before you find a better job and you're gone? Somewhere where you actually want to work. And then how much money have I put into your training that I've yet to get back on that investment? And that costs me a lot of money. And so you should be able, even if you really are just there for a job, at least be able to feign interest in the company, that you want to work there in order to get the job. And practice staying calm and focused. We all have all our little nervous tics and everything. But those are distracting, and that's what I'll be focused on as an interviewer instead of on your answers to the questions. It's also important to remember that the image the interviewer has of you when he first meets you is the one that is going to last. So know the facts, and I've kind of already alluded to this. I've been surprised when applicants weren't able to tell me their dates of employment or what they actually did on a day-to-day basis at their job. So review your work history. Make sure what you say matches what's on your resume. Again, I don't know you. You could just be lying, and if you're hesitant about it or you don't seem to know, my first thought is going to be, this guy's trying to pull one over on me. So take the time to learn about the company and about the job you're applying for as well. What you don't say can and will be used against you in a job interview. If you come to an interview chewing gum, drinking coffee, you'll already have one strike against you because, okay, you're coming chewing gum. Hey, Corey Klein, nice to meet you. Well, that's great, except that you look like a slob, just chewing your gum, smacking your lips and everything, instead of focusing on what's there. If you come in with the coffee, here's what I expect you to do if you come in with a coffee cup. Dude, how's it going? Hey, pleasure meeting you. Great. It's just too laid back. Should be more professional than that. This should matter to you. If you're too laid back, my first impression is this doesn't really matter to you. So too much perfume or not enough deodorant, I kind of already hit on. That's not going to help either, because what am I going to be focused on? Woo, what does that smell? So not being dressed appropriately or having scuffed shoes will give you a second strike. talking or texting on your cell phone or listening to an iPod while waiting to be called for the interview may be your final strike, and you could be done with your candidacy before you even say a word in the interview. Now, what you do say, your verbal communication is important. Don't use slang. Speak clearly and definitely. If you need to think about a response to an interview question, that's fine. It's better to think before you talk than to stumble over your words. So if I asked you, what is your greatest strength? Well, it's, what does that sound like to you if I gave you a response like that? This person has no idea what they're talking about. They've never even thought about where they're strongest at, where they would fit in best. It'd be better to go, if you don't know, because all those are verbal hedges, things that we say when we don't know to give our brain time to formulate an answer. Instead of those verbal hedges, why not something like this? So, Mr. Klein, tell me, what is your greatest strength? That's a very interesting question. I would say that my greatest strength is, now do you see the difference in there? Now I look like more of a thoughtful, considerate person rather than someone who's just stumbling and bumbling over my words like that. So it's better to think before you talk than to stumble over your words. Practice answering some interview questions so you're comfortable responding to the basics. Listen. It can be easy to get distracted during a job interview. It's stressful. You're in the hot seat. You're being grilled. All the eyes, all the attention, the focus is on you, especially when it comes to having to respond to their questions. That said, if you do your best to listen to what the interviewer is asking, it will be easier to frame appropriate responses. In our head, we're already going through 1,000 bits of information or flying through there while they're asking the question. Does he mean this? Does he mean that? Should I bring up this? Should I bring up that? What if I talk about this? Calm down. Take a deep breath. Listen to what they're saying and try to empty your mind except for what they're asking, and then consider it thoughtfully. Using nonverbal communication to impress is also pretty important. What you don't say in an interview, like I've already said, is as important as what you do say. What's important when interviewing is to appear professional and attentive throughout the entire interview process. So body language plays a significant role in the message you convey. For example, wiggling your foot. I've had people sit there. Now, we're sitting at a table, and the upper part of their body is just like shaking, and I keep hearing this. What the heck's going on? Well, they can't stop tapping their foot because they're so nervous. So they're looking all calm up top, except for a little vibration from their foot, and I keep hearing this. Okay, I can't focus on anything if all I keep hearing is this, especially if I'm trying to figure out where the heck it's coming from. Biting your nails. Frantically clicking I had one, and I've had this more than once actually, but people sitting there and you're asking them a question and they're going. Now, how annoying is that? I can't even focus on what you're talking about because all I hear is that pen clicking over and over and over. So all these things make you seem nervous or even bored or distracted, and they're going to annoy the people who are interviewing you to the point where they're not even focused on what you're saying anymore. And remember, this is a sales job. You want them focused on what you are saying. Instead, strike a confident pose. Look the interviewer in the eye when speaking. Lean forward in your chair just a little bit to show you're engaged. I mean, there's nothing worse than coming up. Hi, I'm Curtis Klein. Nice to meet you. I mean, realize there's such a thing as personal space there. So look the interviewer in the eyes, but not real creepily. Don't give them a death stare or anything like that. That's going to make them weird out. Just when they're talking to you, nod, look them in the eye, serious look like you're listening, attentive. Yes, I have considered that before. And what I find about that is something like that. Just don't overdo it. Again, an exaggerated or unnatural pose can come across as well, just plain weird. Now, what kind of questions are they going to ask you in the interview? Here are the 10 questions you're most likely to be asked in a job interview in general. Now, there's some variations on them, but for the most part, you're going to be asked one, if not all these 10 questions. Number one, tell me about yourself. Now, tell me about yourself in a job interview really means give me an overview of who you are professionally speaking. I don't want to know your life biography. And too often in interviews, that's what I get when I say, tell me about yourself. Well, I was born on a cold day, January 10th, 1971, to Kathleen and Curtis Klein. I don't care about any of that. I mean, tell me about yourself. Why here? What can you do for us? That's what I'm looking for. There's a reason this is asked at the very beginning of an interview, because it says, give me the broad background before we dive into the specifics. And what you'll find about all these interview questions is that really what they are asking you is not what they're asking you out loud. All these questions mean something else. And I never did understand why not just cut to the chase, but I'm sure there are legal and ethical reasons for not asking specifics, but just kind of dancing around the subject, hoping that in your answer, you provide the specifics. So you want to be ready with about a 1-minute answer that summarizes where you're at in your career, generally with an emphasis on your most recent job. What you do, what the strengths of your approach are, etc. So I'll give you mine in interviewing for teaching. This is what my answer always is to tell me about yourself. When I was 16, I was assigned an English assignment by an English teacher that said, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And to be honest with you, I had no clue. At the time, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother had all been teachers. My dad's side of the family, all my uncles, my cousins, all worked for the family trucking company. So I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left, but I knew what I didn't want to do. I did not want to be a teacher, and I did not want to be a truck driver. And so not knowing what I wanted to do after school, I ended up enlisting in the Army. And you know what they made me? They made me a truck driver. And after a few years of doing that, I kind of, got into training and things like that and realized I actually enjoyed teaching. And so when I got out of the Army and was considering a career path, I chose teaching as something to do. So I guess never say never. Now look at the elements of that story, and hopefully you got a chuckle out of it. 1, I drew people into the story. They got interested in what I was saying, and they were listening to me. 2, it was a compelling story, again, that drew people in, but it also illustrated a few things. For 1, I went through a period where I didn't know what I wanted to do professionally, and then came to the conclusion this is what I was really good at, that this is my strength, being a teacher. And so, I'm sure this is what I want to do. This isn't just me looking for a job here. 3, that I'm committed to it because, I've already gone through a career, changed it in order to get to this career moment. And so these are things that you got out of that story as an interviewer that you can then use to make that decision, all within the first question. Again, going back to that quick impression that people will have of you. So for instance, another example here. I got into technical writing because I found that I have an unusual mixture of technical aptitude with writing skills. I'd worked as a software engineer for the first few years of my career, but when I saw how rare it was to find people with that kind of technical background who could also write, I started moving into technical writing. I found that I love translating complicated technical information into words that a non-technical person can understand. And the fact that I come from a software background means that I can communicate well with both the tech team and my intended audience. My last boss told me that I was the only employee she'd ever had who mixed those two skills to the extent that I do. Being able to bridge those two worlds so comfortably is the reason I was especially interested in the position here. And if you look, what has he done? A, he hasn't given his life story. He's limited it specifically to the professional world. They've given their strengths. They've shown interest in the position here. So those 3 things right there, big selling points for the tell me who you are example here. Another example, for someone who's more entry level and really doesn't have a career to describe yet, the answer would be more forward looking in these instances. So you might say something like, if you're interviewing to be a, reporter at a local paper or something. I've always been a news junkie, and I spent my last 2 years in school preparing myself to work in communications when I graduated. I sought out internships and extracurricular opportunities that would expose me to media relations work, and I'm excited to continue on that path. I've been told that I'm particularly good at coming up with creative story pitches, and I love pitching. But I really want to learn every aspect of the business from the ground up. I'd like to work in-house rather than in an agency, and I'm especially interested in advocacy work, so I'm particularly excited about this opportunity. Again, not a lot of experience to build on, but a strong thought process about what is involved in the work to demonstrate that you've actually considered it, you know what you're getting into, you know what you want out of the job. Very important in that type of answer for someone with that limited experience looking for that entry-level job. So as you can see in these two examples, you want to keep this focused on your professional persona. Don't bring kids into it or your spouse or where you grew up. And that's not to say you can't say anything personal, but a lot of this stuff are red flags for employers because they can get sued for it. If you talk about, your family or your church, all of a sudden I can be sued for discrimination. If something doesn't go your way at work, all of a sudden I'm discriminating against you. If I know your family is a certain race or engage in certain protected activities, all of a sudden I can be sued if something goes against you at work. So you have to be very careful about why you're bringing it up. And if you're bringing in any of this stuff, it should be in regards to your professional persona. So for instance, you might add something like, oh, and I grew up in this area and still have family here, so I'm really excited about the prospect of moving back. And hence signaling to the interview that you're not going to be flighty about relocation in that instance. But whatever your answer is to this question, practice it out loud over and over so it flows like a story right out of your mouth. Don't try to wing it because you'll have halts. You'll have, oh, and then there was this, and people will get confused. They won't be able to follow you, and now they're no longer interested in you and the story you're telling. They're trying to keep track of all the dates, times, and everything. So make sure it's a consistent story that flows out. Number 2, what interests you about this opening, or why do you want to work for us? Something along those lines. First off, be yourself. It's tempting to morph during an interview, to tweak your answer, to tell the story you think someone else wants to hear about why you should be there. To say you like to work independently when you don't, there's 2 things wrong with that. One, if you don't like working independently and they think you do and you get the job, how good of a job are you actually going to do? How long are you going to be with that company based on that job performance? Are you going to be happy? The dirty little secret about the face-to-face job interview is they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them to make sure you're a fit there and that you'll be successful and happy yourself. So don't limit it by trying to morph to their answers. Be honest. If the job isn't for you, even though the pay is great and you might actually need a job, how badly is it going to hurt your future job efforts when you find something that pays just as much and you really want to do it, but you got fired from that job and now it's on your record and people won't hire you because of that. So be honest about the stuff. To say you like to work independent when you don't do that. Tell your true story. Let your true personality shine through. If the job is really a good match, you'll fare better by being yourself. Learn to enjoy the interview. We don't get many chances to compete in life after high school and all the sports is done anymore. So a job interview really is a chance to show off what you can do for a new team and be a little competitive and work your way in. Relish this opportunity, even during the interview itself, and prove yourself to a new crowd. Engage your interviewer. An interview should be, like I said, a two-way dialogue where both parties get a chance to ask probing questions. So ask away. Now, within the right context and time, right in the middle of them asking a question, don't just throw a question in there, for example. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions, though. When you engage your interviewer with good questions and good questioning at the appropriate time, they all of a sudden get the impression, well, he's actually interested in working here. This isn't just a job that he'll leave. He's actually interested in being here with us and is judging if this is truly the right fit for him. So it's more likely to become a business discussion and less of an interrogation. I went to a teaching interview last year, and within 2 questions, I controlled the interview. And that's one of my goals now as I become better at interviews is how far into the interview will it be before I control the interview? And we probably spent 2 hours in that interview, and I would say an hour and a half of that interview was me talking to them about appropriate instruction for people with learning disabilities and things like that. And that's because I got into it, started talking about my philosophy and everything, and I kind of controlled that interview, and we were focusing on me instead of on, this list of questions that they had. Forget the odds are not in your favor. This isn't the Hunger Games. It doesn't matter if 5 other candidates have already interviewed for the job. You can't do anything about those 5 other candidates or what they said or their impressions. You can only control you. And so that's what you need to be focused on. You can forget the 5 who will interview after you too. Those factors out of your control, so put those thoughts away, interview without restriction. Fill your head with victories. A lot of psychological studies have suggested that our self-talk, the story we tell about ourselves, is what really dictates our behavior. So before you go in there, fill your head with stories about yourself, about being successful, about getting the job done. Be confident. Go in there with the story of, and this is what you'll portray to them, that I'm a valuable person that you should want on your team. So instead of thinking about your shortcomings, play a best of reel in your head when you have breaks during the day. Focus your mind on days or hours when you were on top of the world, loved by everyone as the rainmaker or problem solver. You're offering this new company your best, so that's all you need to showcase. Get ready for the interview and then let it go. There comes a point where there's over preparation that makes you too nervous. The night before, review a little, get a good night's rest. That's my best advice to you. Get a good night's rest. Before you go in the interview, review for 5-10 minutes before the interview, but otherwise let it go. Do all your preparation long before so that you go in there a little bit more relaxed, less nervous, and certainly rested. Of course, it's possible to over-prepare, like I said, but you can also forget to transition from preparation to execution. So when it comes time to do the talking, put all the preparation tools away so you can relax and focus on your goal. Get to know your audience in advance. If you know who's going to interview you, Google them. Search them on Facebook. See what they're interested in. When you come in, maybe you can make some small talk that'll build a connection so that when they got 20 applicants to consider, you stand out because you made that connection with them. So you can ask better questions if you know something about your interviewers, and researching them and the companies will also help you prepare for any questions they'll ask you. To find information about a company or hiring manager, use LinkedIn, Google them. LinkedIn is kind of a professional Facebook for professionals out there. And I'd say go get a LinkedIn account. And you might do that. You might go save your name under a LinkedIn account just to have it. But I wouldn't post anything as a high school student because all these professionals will look at you kind of weirdly. And it is kind of a clicky thing, LinkedIn is. And expect the employer to do the same research on you, by the way. They're going to go out and look and see what they can find about you. Bring a few great stories with you. Everybody loves a great story. It draws people in. Interviewers love true and compelling stories of how you helped a business. So prepare positive stories: situation, action, result, based on key events in your past. Be sure you can identify the specific role you played, for example. So when I go in a story, well, there was a young girl who was really concerned that she wouldn't succeed in a history class, and her behavior, disruptive behavior, kind of evidenced that. I was able to talk to her on an individual basis, give her some tips on improving her performance so that by the time I left that position, she was one of the more outstanding students, not only in my history class, but was actually improving in other classes as well. You see that story there, and it kind of unfolds. Smile at everyone you meet. Now admit it, you're looking at me right now. Okay, this is weird, but what are you doing? You're smiling too. A confident smile shows you're relaxed and happy to be there. But it can also prompt a reaction from people you meet. If they don't smile back, you've learned something about them. They're probably not very happy where they are. Watch and listen for key signals. Is the office busy? Is it vibrant, social? Comparing what you see and hear to your workplace preferences. Whether it's a good or bad fit, you learn something about the company culture just by looking at these key signals. And show genuine interest and passion. Results from recent job interview research suggest that your passion and excitement for the position really does matter. If you come in and you're excited about, okay, this is what I can do, and here's what I can do, I'm going to be excited too because I like my job. Hopefully, if I don't, you've already learned something else there then, haven't you? But if I come in and I like my job and you want to talk about my job, I'm going to be excited too. We're going to be excited together, and I'm going to remember you better. So when you feel it, show it. And this is likely to positively influence an interviewer and change the mood in the room as well. Focus on the first 5 minutes. Keep that energy level up, and I know it's hard to do for a long period of time. That first 5 minutes, though, be that confident, energetic person when you come in the room. Most interviewers say they know in the first 5 minutes whether the candidate's a good fit for the job. Your handshake, your first few answers, and body language all have the potential to signal strength during a job interview. So have a great first 5, and you're in good shape. Try the company's products. Don't go in there and say, oh, I've never even eaten here or anything like that. If you're interviewing with a company that makes a product or service you can touch or experience, get your hands on it. See what you think and be honest about it. If you think there's some weaknesses, then try to see where your strengths would fit in to improve that weakness. Test it. Be ready to share your experience. slide up your dimmer switch. I don't know if you know that I'm a dimmer switch. My grandparents had one in the dining room, and it's a little switch that moves up and down, and the lights get a little bit lighter as you move down a little bit. So, you know, romantic lighting, you just slide it down a bit there. But sometimes you need a mental gimmick to shake off the nerves, pull you up, get your light to shine. And I know I'm kind of old fashioned. I listen to 80s music still, but I'll tell you one thing that gets my juices going and gets me ready for an interview, gets me pumped up. Run DMC, King of Rock. So pre-interview, that's what I'm jamming to. I got Run DMC, King of Rock on. I'm the King of Rock. There is none higher. I'm ready to go, man. So just get that switch moved up and engage the first person you meet with a confident smile as a result. And be honest. An occasional I don't know will not ruin your chances at landing the job. I've met more than one interviewer who honestly say, and this is in the educational field, that they make up an acronym and throw it out to see how the person will respond. So they make up an acronym, you know, what do you think about, you know, SACE? And, you know, some people will lie because they just want the job. Oh, I think it's, you know, very good, you know, program. But if you're honest, I don't even know what that is. They'll think more of you, actually. So delivering the truth says you're comfortable and confident with what you know and what you can do. And that's all I had for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself here, or actually I'll just unmute everybody right now. Do you guys have any questions about the interview process so far, those top 2 questions? Okay, well, we're going to cover the others tomorrow. And so I'm just going to tell you, I'm running a little bit behind for my other class, so I appreciate you guys sticking around. And I'm going to end the meeting now unless you guys have any questions. Hope your day is going to go great. Go enjoy it. It's great weather, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.